This week, a bizarre and troubling shooting took place outside a CVS in Roslindale. A man allegedly wielding a military-style knife was shot to death by police and the FBI. While Boston police have tried to stem rumors about the incident, their willingness for transparency has excluded one key arm of the community: the media. According to Boston police, 26-year-old Usaama Rahim was under 24/7 surveillance and his phone had been wiretapped. Rahim allegedly told his nephew David Wright he planned to behead police officers. That's when police approached him outside the CVS.
Their lives were in danger when two officers discharged their weapons.
The next day, Boston Police Commissioner Bill Evans invited community leaders to view surveillance video, eager to dispel rumors that Rahim was shot in the back.
We had everybody in that room. And again, the whole idea was to be as transparent as possible.
But not transparent enough to include the news media. No representative from any media outlet was allowed to see the video, leaving descriptions to police and select individuals.
I think the video is clear, but it's distant.
And while Rahim allegedly frequented extremist websites, there is no proof he had a connection to ISIS. Still, some media made that leap.
With a deadly confrontation outside Boston today between law enforcement and a man they feared might be preparing to launch an ISIS-inspired attack.
Reporters on Twitter also made the connection between Rahim and ISIS. That reporting prompted The Intercept's Glenn Greenwald to write that it's not that the police claims are untrue, it's just that they were aggressively and uncritically amplified by an always pro-police media. I don't know about pro-police, but members of Rahim's family also said the media fueled the connection with ISIS.
If it wasn't for him being Muslim, then we would not be hearing terrorism. We would not be hearing ISIS.
Meanwhile, there is yet another mysterious element to this story: a third person who met with Rahim and his nephew on a Rhode Island beach. WJAR in Providence named that person. That's a leap no one else has taken. So I've raised a number of media concerns, and I'll start with that last one, Dan, because you wrote about it this week as well. And that's reports that that Rahim and his nephew met with somebody on a beach in Rhode Island. JAR named the person, said it was somebody who used to be a paper boy and then transformed himself, wearing now robes and long hair and a long beard and all that. But they went so far as to name the person when we have no idea what his connection is to this.
Yeah, and we saw other major media saying that they knew who it was, but they were withholding his name because he was simply a person of interest at this point. He hasn't been charged with anything. They don't know how he fits into the larger picture. So I think it's very good practice not to name somebody who's in that particular situation, because this is so explosive and we know so little about what really happened.
Basically, everybody agreed with that. My bigger concern is about the inclusion of the news media. I felt it was definitively exclusionary, that it was a small group of people and a very select group of people, maybe even bordering on pandering, and not to allow even like somebody from the AP or somebody just to view it and get a more dispassionate description. Am I wrong?
I think that's fair. I think having a pool reporter essentially who could be the representative of the media in that sort of an environment would have been a valuable thing. I mean, selfishly as the media, we'd like to see that and have that information. I think it also would have made sense from a public relations standpoint, from a public safety control standpoint, because you would have had someone who is an objective voice, someone who is not involved, who is not a member of the community, who is not a family member, to be able to transmit that message more broadly. I can sort of understand the desire to keep it as contained as possible, but I think on net it probably would have been better to have the media involved.
And I think that what we see here is sort of a continuation of police using sort of the shield of authority that comes with what they do as a reason to sort of put the public and the media a little bit further away at arm's length. And, we were talking about this last week in terms of public records requests. And again, I think we can see a similar sort of pattern here where they're withholding information and saying that they're doing it for the right reasons, even if those reasons aren't really known to us. I agree with Josh, and not just because he's my boss, but because it's the truth that in this situation, which as we've just said, is sort of very hot right now, considering that we're coming right off the Zanara case, that we need to have an extra party that is not the police and that is not the family. And that's the role that the media could play here.
Well, the police have been transparent on their own terms, you know,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
when it's convenient for them, and when it seems the evidence helps their case. And in this case, you know, it did. They were able to refute the claim that was made early on that he was shot in the back. He was not. I'm not convinced from the reports I've heard about the video that the video would answer all of those questions. But there are, you know, this is why people are pushing for body cameras on police, because not only will this address individual situations where there's a question, it'll address some police practices that I think we all need to be aware of in the long term.
Like, what were they saying? Because one of the imams who did see it said, I still don't understand why they killed him, going on to say you could stop a charging elephant without killing it. So there are some questions about...
Correct. You know, are police trained always to shoot to kill when they're threatened? What's the threshold for threatened? There are a lot of open questions about this case.
What about the media's connection to ISIS? There were some references in one of the affidavits, and he had looked at some websites that had ISIS connections, but do you think we made a bigger leap to that?
Well, the guy on MSNBC said ISIS inspired, and there's a real difference between someone, you know, wanting to do a copycat thing and being part of an organization. And I feel like that's one of the many things that hasn't, that you know, gets amplified on a 140 character tweet. You say ISIS, and people flip out.
I suppose that if the authorities genuinely believed that he was looking to behead a police officer, then it's fairly obvious to draw the ISIS analogy. I'm not hugely troubled by that. I just want to know a lot more than we know right now, and I hope we do.
I think they have said that they were more will be forthcoming after
after the funeral.
Rahim was buried, and that's happening today.